Hey, thanks. Thank you all for coming today, first and foremost, and thank you all for everyone who helped out in 2024. Thank you, and I'm excited to be back in 2025, and excited for the room to be full and everybody to be here thinking about how to best care for their bees. So we're going to take a little bit and give you sort of my thoughts on what we should be doing now and what's important for the club. So let's 15, 5-ish minutes. I said 15 minutes to fly high. I fly high is not an ego thing. I've been accused of saying fly high is an ego thing. No, fly high is don't limit anybody in the room, right? We should not be limited. We should all achieve the best we can achieve with our beekeeping and everything in general, right? So the goal of everybody should be to fly high. It's not me flying higher than anybody else. Just to put that out there. I heard about it. So these are the officers, really quick, that are going to be serving in 2025. All these names are basically returned from 2024, which is awesome. So, we are functioning with the same group of officers, which is amazing. Really quick for the new people in the room who don't know who the faces are. You met Donna, who's leading this meeting, who gives me only 5 minutes. Mark Metters is behind so everything tech related.
And I'll give him 5 minutes.
Is Mark. Carissa is unfortunately has COVID. Carissa is our secretary. She's online. Russ Luck, our past president, is returning as assistant secretary. He's back there. He's going to be helping me out with a bunch of things this year. Howard, who you've heard from, who's in the back, is our lead treasurer. And Chris, who's sitting in the back there with Russ, the assistants are sitting together at the table, is our assistant treasurer. The officers do meet once a month to plan the following month's agenda, so they are giving a fair amount to make this club run. Really quick, everything in this club for the new people gets driven through committee, right? So if something is going to get delivered to the membership, it goes through committee. And that's important because if I don't have a committee lead and the committee lead does not have members, then what happens? Nothing. Thank you. That's probably more important than anything to hear, right? So everything gets delivered through committee. The committee needs a lead and the committee needs members in order for a program to function, okay? So when the ask comes out, I know this isn't bee related, but I just want to make sure that everyone sort of understands what goes on in my crazy brain. Like, that's how decisions are being made to what we offer and how we do it. Can we get a lead and can we get volunteers? And everybody in this room can contribute, right? To help and make these things happen. Like if there's something that interests you today, please seek out one of these committee leads and say, I'm interested in that. Let me get more involved because that's going to help them deliver more program. And all the money in this club, generally with the exception of keep the lights on, all gets delivered through the committees, right? So everything that we do from an operation standpoint gets financed through the budget and a set amount of money goes to the committee leads. That's how we run things here. So if you have an idea, if you think we should be doing something, I would strongly suggest to find a committee that would fit into. And if you think that you have an idea or something that's not going to fit into a committee, please let me know and maybe we're missing something that we should be doing. Does that all make sense? That's the last time I'm going to talk about operations, but that's just an overview of how the club operates in general. Is that pretty fair, Charlie? Charlie's been with me for a long time. Charlie's the queen lead. He needs help too. So really quick, the leads. The apprentice program is this year it's Russ Lux who's in the back and myself is leading the apprentice program. The beginners course is Mark Metters who's up front here. Bee chat is Donna, Diane, and Ed. Ed's sitting here. Community outreach is Damon. That's our all the things that we get asked to speak at and outreach and connection with the community. Entertainment, thankfully, is Monica's awesome, is back this year.
Door prizes.
And door prizes. Monica, raise your hand. Monica's always looking for help. We spent, we spent over $6,000, and I'm saying this because I'm happy about it, not because I'm upset about it. We spent $6,000 on entertainment last year, just for to celebrate you as members, right? Just to the hive hop picnic, the gala, the holiday party, the door prize. It's all. That's to celebrate you guys, honestly. Bring people together, be social, hang out, and Monica did an awesome job with making spending all that money. And she asked for more this year, and I said, sure. Grants, Paul, raise your hand, Paul. We do give out money every year. That program is administered through Paul. Sheena's not horticulture. We do plants, so we sell native plants every year. Sheena does a great job. We have a bunch of people that come to my house and seed every Thursday at 10 o'clock. Queen team, I said, it's Charlie. The women's bee group is Donna, Carissa, Sheena. So that's our community committee leads. Unfortunately, what you don't see on there this year is conference. So unfortunately, we had to cancel our conference this year because I could not get a committee lead to run that committee. So that ask went out. Unfortunately, I understand. You know, we all have lives. We're all busy. But as I said last year, and I said now, if I don't have a lead, we're not doing it. And if the lead doesn't have help, we're not doing it. You know, because one of the big concerns that I have personally is burnout. You know what I mean? Like I worry about burnout tremendously because we're all volunteers, and I don't want any of these people who obviously all these are return people, right? They're highly valuable for me being president. If I was up here trying to do this all myself, I would fail. But I can't have people burn out. And this is a real discussion that happens amongst the officers and the committee leads is burnout. So if you're sitting in the room and say, hey, I can help Monica, I can help Damon, I can help Mark, I can help on BChat, however you can help is very valuable. Because if I don't have the help, like I said, I'll just say no. And that's not trying to be mean or it's just trying to be sustainable. Anyway, so unfortunately, there is no conference this year. That's going to have a financial impact. It's going to have two impacts on the club. It's going to have an educational impact. It's going to have a financial impact. To minimize both of these, we plan on doing small seminars through the year. So you will see 3 or 4 educational events that are bigger, not as big as the conference, but that are really more hands-on and educational to hopefully help out. Anyway, next. My heart's going. Breathe. I'm trying to do in 5 minutes, so I'm going to get to bees in a second because that's what's interesting to me. So we have 4 places we keep bees in the club. Okay, so we keep bees at Bondsville Mill Park and Downingtown. We keep bees at Cheslin Apiary, which is our apprentice nuke yard and our queen yard. We keep bees at Sugartown, and come April, we're going to be keeping bees here at the Park Center, which is going to be really exciting because for 2 reasons. One is that after the meetings, we're going to have the ability to go out and get into hives. So those who come to meetings who want to get their hands into bees will have that opportunity. And the second thing, it allows us to continue to make connections with the community. One of the connections that Chuck is around here somewhere. I saw Chuck come in to the left. Raise your hand, Chuck. Oh, there he is. You know, Chuck and the VA in Coatesville have put together a proposal which has been accepted to start a veterans program through beekeeping, and the hope is that you know, some of these sites will be used to sort of foster that relationship. So these sites are there for 2 purposes. One, they're there for education, right? So whether or not a beginner's course, apprentice program, the Queen program, like places where members can go and get educated about bees. And so that's the primary reason to have these clubs. And I'm a big believer, if we're a bee club, we probably should be managing some bees somewhere. So, so they're the sites. Now, with that said, we are looking for a Bondsville Mill Park apiary manager. So Bondsville Mill is in Downingtown. That site has will have 3 hives in it.
It can have up to 5.
And that site is there because we have a relationship with Bondsville Mill Park to do some education with them around pollinators, around bees. It's a location that we do our beginner's course. It's got some nice, from a community outreach point, there's a lot of people that go in and out of that. We have our sign there. There's a little bit of community engagement that happens in there. What we basically need somebody to do is be responsible for those hives. You know, every week's monthly check, make sure they're okay. The club pays for the management of those hives. So, you know, the mite treatments, the sugar feeding, things like that, we paid for. If you decide to keep honey from those hives, we allow you to keep the honey. So if you want to harvest the honey, but then you have to feed the sugar water back. We'll provide you the sugar, but you need to feed it back. So that's the compensation for being an apiary manager. You have to work with whoever's doing the beginner's course out there communicate. So there's a little bit of a communication that needs to happen. If anybody is interested in that position, raise your hand now.
I could help.
Okay, so we got Craig.
I don't.
We're good? Mark, you got names? Good, thank you.
I'm willing to help
Anthony,
somebody.
right?
Anthony,
Yeah,
Greg.
well, it is right behind my house.
Oh, awesome.
So.
He knows nothing
So I
about
don't know
bees.
enough about-
That's
But I'm willing to help and learn. I can walk there. So.
Yeah.
But just along with that, could maybe the committee head things and everything like that become like a 2-year thing and have an assistant who could potentially then take it over? Because like that, like I don't have enough knowledge to be a apiary manager, but I could certainly help somebody and then maybe do it next year, which would also help with the
Absolutely.
burnout
You know,
thing.
if there's something that you're interested in, please reach out. Everyone, no one's excluded, right? I mean, and especially on a committee, I mean, I tried to get some assistant committee leads. I wasn't all that successful, but Shirley, don't feel, I remember being in your spot where you're new and you're sitting there and like, what can I offer? You can offer a lot. So don't be afraid to say, can I help out in this area, you know?
What do you have for organizing these small seminars? What's the plan on that?
Good question. I'm not, not yet, but yes, not yes.
Sounds like you'd like to write a curriculum for us.
That's what I was thinking.
There you go.
We will, yeah, so that educational piece hasn't started yet, but I will send out
I'd be willing to take
an ask of people to get involved with these small seminars. There's a couple ideas of what these seminars will be, but that's about where the extent of it is right now.
Okay.
Cool. Everyone understand? That's where we keep bees. They're there for a club. If you want to, for some reason, access these sites or use these sites, or please don't just show up and put your hands in the hives. Please let somebody know like why you want to do it and what you're trying. We'll probably say yes and make it work, but just don't show up and just start digging through bees just because.
Question, where exactly is the Cheslin Apiary?
The Cheslin Apiary is at 651 Brandywine Road in Westchester. It's off. It's across from Embryville. Embryville. And they're all small hives there. So we have the apprentice nukes. So some of you have been in the apprentice program. Show up, and Joe and I get people's hands in hives. That's kind of part of the apprentice program. And Charlie does the queen mating boxes, but that's in Embryville. And Sugartown's in Malvern, right? Sugartown Historic.
Yeah.
Is in
It's
Malvern.
Sugartown.
Bondsville's in Downingtown. So these are the 4 sites we have bees. Thanks. Okay, finally. Oh, my goal. I'm gonna get to bees. I promise you. This is my goals. I want to be inclusive of all kinds of beekeepers. I know that we have beginner beekeepers, we have experienced beekeepers, we have hobbyist beekeepers, we have people that run hundreds of hives or thousands of hives. Everybody's welcome. Everyone's bringing their own value to the association. We have treatment-free people, we have treatment people, we have people that run big hives, we have people that run small hives, we have people that run top bar hives. I really don't care, honestly. As long as we're all respectful of each other and bring our opinions together, we can all exist in the same room, I think. And of all skill levels, we're all learners, right? It's great to have new people in the room who are just on their journey. I think the one cool thing about beekeeping is you're always learning, right? I mean, the way you look at your hive, the way you manage your hive, the way you see the bees, is always adapting to maybe your own personal goals or your own knowledge. So the more we can come together and discuss and share, the better off it's going to be for everybody, honestly. Engagement with club members in the local community. We talked about that already. I want to increase everybody's knowledge and skill level, right? I mean, if Jeff Eckel, who's our local inspector, says when he goes to see a Chester County club member, like it should be better than seeing a Bucks County club. No offense to anyone who's in Bucks County, but that's the goal, right? The goal is when the inspector shows up to your apiary, your shit's in order, right? Like you know what's going on in your hives, and your hives are healthy, and part of the reason for that is because you're a member of Chester County Bee Club, right? You take advantage of the resources we have, and you learn how to manage your bees well, and that's important. And I think Jeff would hopefully say that is true. I'm not sure if he would, but But that's the goal. So again, increase everybody's knowledge and skill level. And I'm a big believer and I know bees aren't native and all that, but this whole idea of ecosystems has become like fascinating to me. Like we're all part of an ecosystem in some level, right? So if we can sort of support the health of the club or support the health of native plants or outreach, we all benefit in that in some way, right? And we should have no reason living in Chester County that we aren't making our ecosystems better, period, right? Because we have more resources than 99.9% of the people in the world, right? For sure. And so why can't we use that to benefit ourselves and our neighbors and our peace, right? So that's my thought. We are very blessed and fortunate to be part of it. Beginner education. So there's two, for new beekeepers in the room, we thought this is important. There's two things that we do to help beginners along their journey. Generally a good idea, honestly. I'm not gonna tell you how to spend your money, but trying to get that mentoring and an increased knowledge up front is going to make you more sustainable, right? And going to result in you buying less bees. And there's two ways we do that. We have the beginner's course, which is a monthly classroom. I sent out an email about this, but there's a monthly classroom, March through September. There's monthly in-hive labs where you sit and inspect bees and some other things that go along with it. And that starts up in March. We generally have a total class size of about 25 or 30 people. Mark's running that from an educational standpoint this year.
Just to correct something on the slides, it says Apprentice Nuke Yard. That's not true. It's at the 4 sites at the 4 apiary sites, and we're limiting class size to 6 people in the lab sessions. The large classroom session could be 100 people, but we want 6 people limited in the yard. If we need to add more sessions, we'll add more sessions.
We had a club member who he's not here. I don't see him today, but he did the beginner's course for 5 years in a row. And I said, why are you back?
I said the same thing.
I said, why are you taking this class again? It was just, some of it was social and some of it was a continuing learning kind of thing. I don't recommend people to take the class 5 years in a row.
By the way, he was in that class. I was teaching it this last year. The first class he was in, 10 minutes into the class, he goes, I didn't know that. So yeah, you do learn things. Sometimes it's because you looked away while you were trying. You should have been learning it the first time, and you miss it. And that's just human nature.
So this is a group-based course, right? You meet as a group to get the classroom stuff, and then you go to small groups to get the in-hive stuff. So it's a group-based kind of setting, okay? We've been doing this a while. There's a curriculum you follow, certain things that get done. You meet your other new beekeepers in a group type setting. It's got nice social support. It's fun. The other program we have is the apprentice program. So the apprentice program is those people that are thinking about getting bees or getting bees. And what we do is we end up pairing you up with a teacher. So you're the apprentice, another CCBA member is a teacher, and you go out to their apiary site and work in their apiary site with their teacher twice a month. So it's more individualized, it's more one-on-one.
Thank you.
And we are looking for teachers. So Russ is coordinating that. Raise your hand, Russ. You will see an email if you haven't sent. I can't remember if I sent it out. Looking for teachers. Please, we need about 20 to 30 teachers for that program. So if you've taught before, thank you. If you're willing to teach this year, please let Russ know. You have anything else to add, Russ?
Any of the new people here to the club, if you need experience, the best way to get it is have your hands in the hive with an experienced teacher. So I highly recommend that. We've had a lot of people in the club be teachers. It's real fun. It's very enjoyable for me to share information. So like George said, we only have one person registered to be a teacher, and that's me.
I'll do the second.
So we got 2. Okay, we need more. So and then if you're a newer beekeeper, it's great to develop a relationship with the teacher, and you can call them up. My apprentices call me up hey, I got this going on, that going on, I'm able to answer their questions. And I find it very, very enjoyable to share information. And like Mark said, George said, we're all learning beekeeping, new techniques. Appreciate your support.
And then part of that apprentice program, it's an optional. We meet with the apprentices on Tuesday, Joe and I at the nuke yard, and we just basically get our hands in nukes, and we're learning on how to read a frame and handle bees. So that's part of that program too. I think they're both highly valuable programs for what we charge for them. A little bit of that is dependent on who you are and who your teacher is, but I would highly encourage any new beekeeper, or if you're a newish beekeeper and you haven't got your bees to survive the winter, or at least all of your bees, or most of your bees to survive the winter, consider signing up for that. I think it's a great way to learn. We do a little bit of education at these meetings, but we can't teach you how to become a sustainable beekeeper. Honestly, I could, but they wouldn't let me do it.
For those of us that are brand new to beekeeping,
Sure.
would you suggest taking the beginner's course first and then the apprentice course, or can you take them both?
You can
together?
take them both together. People sign up for both. I think it really depends on you as a learner, honestly. Are you one that's gonna do better in a group type classroom, small group setting, or are you okay with doing a one-on-one apprenticeship? The apprenticeship is they're probably equal time commitment. Maybe the apprenticeship is a little bit more of a time commitment, but they're pretty close. So time commitment's not different. I think it's just a matter of how you see yourself learning the best, honestly. They're going to cover the same material. You know, your in-hive work will probably be more in the apprentice program. And what you learn from a knowledge-based standpoint will probably be a little bit more variable depending on who your teacher is in the apprentice program versus the beginners program. That's a little bit more structured as far as what you learn. I mean, you may get paired up with a honey producer, and that honey producer may just want to talk about honey production. No offense to any honey producers in the class, and that may be your apprentice program, like how to make a load of honey, right? You know, that's not bad. Does that make sense? Now we do screen the apprentices a little bit, teachers a little bit. So we do ask you if you can do a mic count and if you know how to use a miticide. And but does that make sense? Without saying more.
What's the approximate time commitment on each one of those?
The beginners course monthly classrooms are 2 hours once a month plus a
2-hour lab.
So if the
4
beginner's
hours.
course is 4 hours a month, the apprentice program is probably similar, 4 hours a month. You know, it's probably twice a month working at your. Now we try to we do really work hard at pairing people geographically and trying to make it work so they're both your times sort of the apprentice. But it's hard. It just depends on how many teachers we get. The more teachers we get, the easier that becomes. You know, they're both great programs. I have worked in both of them, both on the learner side and on the teacher side, and surely I think it's a great way to be sustainable beekeeper, right? Learn the skills necessary to be sustainable. Yes.
One, don't call me Shirley anymore. Number two, can a third-year beekeeper be an apprentice teacher?
Yeah, no, I think you know, you're going to be working with people who are just so brand new. So if you're 2 or 3 years into beekeeping, you feel like you have the basic understanding on how to manage your bees, and then yes, you can be an apprentice teacher, right? Because your learners are going to be way behind where you are, right? And no one really expects the 1 year of beekeeping to be the, you know, like the Frank or the Keith or you know or the Carol beekeeper of the world. That's not the intent of these programs, right? So you're not going to take a learner who's in the apprentice program and make them a Carol of the year. That's just not. You know, honestly, the apprentice program, we designed the apprentice program as like you take it before you get your bees, right? So you can do this and you can say, I'm not interested in this at all. I know they bought me a hive, but I don't like stinging insects. I don't like a veil. I don't like honey. I don't like any of it. I'm out.
I go in anaphylactic shock when I get stung.
I'm out. I'm done with this. You know, and the only thing it costs you is $150 instead of thousands of bucks. So, you know, that was the idea of the apprentice program and the beginner program. A lot of people think you should spend a year learning before you buy bees, right? Why not? You know, make sure you're into it, because the reality is is that 75% of people are out of beekeeping in 3 years. That's the reality of it. So you're seeing a bunch of people here who are not that, but that's the reality for new beekeepers. So anyway, moving on.
Do you still need to talk bees?
Yes, I need to talk bees. Wow, thank you.
What time is it down?
So keeping bees alive. So there's always 4 things to assess. Take your notes now. There's 4 things to assess when you do an inspection: bees, brood, food, disease. Say it, bees, brood, and disease. And every hive inspection, they're the 4 things that you're assessing with these management decisions. This hive size to colony size is I've become really fascinated in this, is that, you know, in the winter right now, the bees exist in a cluster, right? And the cluster size is anywhere between a frame or 2, probably to a 10-frame box, and everything in between. And that's going to make a lot of change now on your management, but always getting a sense of how big your colony size is and how big their house is. It's very important as you sort of take care of your bees. Brood, is there brood now? Generally, I always feel like in this neck of the woods, brooding really doesn't start until the end of January to the beginning of February. How do we know this? Some people dig through their hives in December. Howard tells me don't go into your hives, right? Because you're not doing anything. But the other way to tell is you run temperature sensors in your hives, right? So some people put temperature sensors on top of their brood nests, and we know that when the bees are making brood, they keep the nest at 92 degrees. And the cluster, when they're not making brood, the cluster sits between 60 and 70 degrees, right? So if you take a temperature sensor and sit it above where the cluster is, and that temperature gets above 80 degrees, you can assume somewhere in that area they're making brood. And when they make enough brood, then the temperature will hit 92 degrees. So we know through both of those methods that brooding, that the queen usually starts to lay at the end of January or in the beginning of February. So that means most hives are still broodless right now. Now, if you have some bees that came from Hawaii and they're used to brooding all year round and they have big colonies, you may find some brood in your hives now. The one thing, if there is no brood in your hives now, for those who procrastinate and haven't done their dribble or their vaporization with oxalic, you still have the ability to do that to knock down your mite levels, because there should be no cap brood. So if you're kind of late on doing your dribble, you can still do that today because it's going to get really cold. Some people, what I did never realize is they say, well, don't open your hives this time of year because you break the propolis or you chill bees, right, when you open them up. I don't know how important. But what I did learn by looking at Broodminder, you know, the adaptation that the bees make when you open that thing, they start to get active and they raise their temperature, right? So that cluster raised, you know, usually at 60 to 70 degrees, and you pop open the top of that hive, you'll see that if you have a temperature probe up there, you'll see the bees get to 75 or 80 degrees just based on you've woken them up and you've made them stir around. It takes 2 full days to get that cluster back to temperature of 60 to 70 degrees. So it takes a while before the bees sort of be able to sort of get themselves back in place and get them back into their winter cluster. And during that time, they're probably consuming more food and doing unnecessary stuff. So I don't think you're really at risk for assuming you don't leave the hive open for all day long, right? But I do think that you do wake them up and it takes a while for them to get back down. So food is the big one, right? Food. It's interesting because we have 15 nukes. I'm going off, but I'm going to go off on a tangent because I don't know. We have 15 nukes out of the apiary, out of the Cheslin apiary. They're all live this year, I think. We learned from last year. So we have 15 5x5 nuke boxes, right? So they're 5 frames. They have insulation at the top. They got a solid bottom board, and they're not wrapped. And we weighed them all like September, October, November. So the average weight of these nukes in November, say, was 65 pounds, right? So these double 5-frame nukes were 65 pounds in November. 2 months later, no one wins anything, but 2 months later, what do you think the average weight of those nukes were? Anyone? 55, 35, 55, 60, 50, dead.
How much does a box weigh?
So how much resources have they consumed in the last 2 months? So the answer is, this is an average, right? So this is an average. So they weighed 65 pounds back November 15th, January 15th, they weighed 59 pounds on average. So these, again, this is a double five. This isn't, I'm not trying to generalize this to anything beyond a nuke, 10 frames. Average cluster size is about 4 frames of bees. Those bees have lost 6 pounds over the last 2 months. Which is interesting, right? Sort of interesting. A little bit less than I thought. I thought they were going to lose about 10 pounds. They lost 6 pounds. The other thing that's interesting in this, I know this is only so interesting. It's not going to get more interesting. But all those hives were managed exactly the same. They were all in the same box. They all have a solid bottom board. They all have top insulation. They all have about 4 seams of bees in them because they've all been managed the same. They were all fed. The range of weight loss goes anywhere between 4 pounds and 10 pounds. So why is that?
Number of bees.
Number of bees.
Size of box.
They're all in the same size box.
No, the actual size of the box and the size of the bees.
Size of the box and size of the bees.
It's, if you have the right size box and the right size bees, then you have the right size for efficiently keeping the temperature with the least amount of resources.
How do you make that happen?
By the first one.
Making decisions on hive size, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. I think to optimize that, it is hive size, the colony size, the resource amount. But and then genetics. I heard genetics. You know, we're going to hear about locally adapted bees, right? Like get local bees if possible for a couple reasons. One reason is historically they've been shown to survive like locally or more likely to keep alive than non-local bees. They will probably produce more, and they're probably adapted to existing in our environment. So maybe the ones that consume less are more adapted, and the ones that consume more think they're in Hawaii. I'm not sure, but that was what we learned, and that's cool. So that's food. So the bottom line is those hives are not going to starve because we fed them sugar water and we got them up to weight, and they probably have 30 pounds of resources on them, and they've only consumed 5. So I think they're going to make it through March and not consume the resources, but we fed them. Now, the other thing that's of interest, one more thing. So one hive out there was a control. So we had one 5/5 nuke that we decided we're going to let it be the control. And it was a hive that was strong, that we didn't split. And in August, that hive was 70 pounds. So in August, this 5/5 hive was full of honey, and it was 70 pounds. So we decided we're not going to feed this hive because it's 70 pounds, and it doesn't need fed. It's completely heavy. We're not going to feed it. And that was August. Well, we fed everything else. We fed everything else up to 70 to 65 pounds. So everything else was lower. We got to 65 pounds. The fact that this was at 70, we left it be. Okay, so what happened? So it was 70 pounds at August. What do you think it was going into November with no feed? 35, 40, 50 pounds. So this is only one hive. So between August and November, in those 2 months, it lost 20 pounds from fall brooding and making winter bees and using up resources. And there was no fall.
It's the
Wish
fall
I could
brooding
lose
without
20
resources. That's
Fall
why
brooding without resources, and
Did it swarm?
it did not swarm.
Same queen?
It was requeened, but it was requeened earlier, so it sort of had existing as a population prior to.
Yeah, a mass weight loss like that, first thing goes through my mind is it's swarm because bees will lead with
No, it didn't.
a large amount of honey. And if you don't go in the box in a while and your queen's not marked or clipped, you'll go back in there and not think they swarm because they did fully requeen and they're brood again. But something like that would first thing. I know you mark your queens,
Right.
So I'm assuming if there's still the same marked queen in there, then
It did not swarm, but that's a good point, right?
Yeah.
Because when your hive swarms, you'd be surprised how much resources it takes with
That's
it
right.
up to the tree.
That's
yeah.
right.
But no, it did not. It was fall fall bee production without food for 20-pound weight loss. And we didn't, and I ended up not feeding that hive, and I watched it drop, and I ended up putting fondant on it the last time I was out there because I was concerned it was going to starve because it had gotten down to 45 pounds or 44 pounds, and the weight of the boxes and frames and all that was about 35 or 40 pounds. So it only had 5 pounds left of resources. So what I thought, what seemed like enough in August was not enough, which is a little disconcerting, right? Because I don't want to try to, it would be nice if, anyway, you get what I'm saying. Yes.
With the fondant and the sugar water, are they like substitutes for each other, or are they form two separate?
Right. So I think they're substitutes for each other. The question now is like, what can you, if your bees need feed now, can you feed them sugar water? And it's probably too cold to feed them sugar water. Warren Graham, a EAS master beekeeper, I remember when I first joined the club, he was talking about, those of you remember, Warren used to bring his yogurt containers, and he had these tiny yogurt containers that he put up right on top of the cluster and fed the bees right over the cluster, some liquid, but only small amounts. But if you dump a lot of liquid feed into your hives now, they're not going to take it. It's going to chill off. It's probably going to put too much moisture in the hive. So right now, if you need to feed, you need to feed some sort of solid-based sugar, which would either be homemade sugar bricks, candy, or fondant. And they all sort of work. Probably fondant and candy work a little bit better than dry sugar, in my opinion. But that's your option right now to feed the bees. And that's so yeah. So
I put fondant in mine,
Mhm.
and I'm glad I made the choice, I guess.
Yeah,
I
and
wasn't sure.
can you overfeed them dry? Probably not, honestly. You know what I mean? Like if you're not sure and you're like, okay, I got some sugar, I got some fondant, and I put a shim at the top and put it right over the cluster. If they don't need it, is it going to do any harm? Probably not. You know, it's just, it may still be there in a month or two, but it's probably not going to harm them. How am I? And I'm way over. I'm aware. You know, I said, how am I doing? Know your mite count and treat effectively. Obviously, we talked about oxalic dribble. Mites kill colonies, despite what, you know, there are people out there that are working on bees that can coexist with the mites, and therefore the mites aren't going to result in colony death. But for 99% of us in the room, we should think relatively simply about this, honestly. Mites kill bees. Mites and their viruses kill bees. So you always want to know your mite levels. With that said, as a backyard beekeeper, you should know if your treatments are effective too. I really try to, and we'll do this again this year. A lot of the bigger beekeepers don't do mite levels on their hives just because it's just too many hives, right? But if you're a backyard beekeeper and you're keeping a few hives, you really should learn how to do a mite level, and I would say do a mite level every month and learn what your colony is doing with their mites. It's not that hard to do. We'll teach you how to do it. With that said, you think every miticide on the market is effective. You would hope so, right? You would think, like, if I buy this mite treatment and I read the package instruction and I effectively put this miticide on my hive, it's going to make it all better. Not necessarily. I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want to badmouth any company or product. That's just my own experience. But the best way to know is if it's working is to do your mite levels and test it that way, you know. And that's something that is very important. Now, with that said, please don't go home and open up your hive and start doing mite levels. Today is not the day to do your mite levels, right? But maybe March and April is. Who knows?
Hey, George.
Historically, I thought March and April was too early, but you don't know what's going on. Let's check. Yes. January management considerations. Must do. Must do's and to consider. Last slide almost. Prevent starvation. Must do. We talked about that. Keep insulation and wraps on the hives. There's no reason to take insulation and wraps off the hives right now. Keep them warm if you have them on there. And don't open hives unless it's absolutely vital to survival, which basically this time of year means starvation. See, Howard, I say don't do it. To consider. Some people like to remove dead bees from the bottom board with their wire bent hangers. They'll go out there and scoop the dead bees out of the bottom board. I don't think you're harming anything. I'm not sure if you're doing any good. It's a good time to move hives to new locations. So if you want to move hives to different area in your yard or to a different yard, no better time than the winter to do that. They're in there for a while, they'll get reoriented. And plan on where to get bees and equipment.